My name is Nyles Bauer. This problem originated in Tucson, Arizona, and moved up to, well, really the events started in Tucson, Arizona. The problem began when I arrived in Olympia, Washington. I'm a victim of the family court corruption, attorney misconduct, criminal court misconduct, and judicial misconduct. Olympia has a domestic violence organization to prevent domestic violence, and I went to them, and I was told by one of the employees there that the view of Safe Place, which is the name of the place here in Olympia, Washington, is that if a man beats a woman, it's the man's fault. I have no problem there. If a woman beats a man, it's also the man's fault because the man forced the woman to beat him because there was no alternative for her, which is absolutely insane. Further, the commissioner, Schaller, either still sits or previously sat on the board that governs Safe Place. And which you would think would be a conflict of interest. Well, certainly is a conflict of interest, but you'd think that'd be enough to have the judge recuse herself. But in family court here, judges and commissioners are not required to recuse themselves at all. Safe Place went as far as to call the place I was renting and tell the owner that I was an abuser and that I should be thrown out. And in fact, that night, I was thrown out on the street. That's how bad things are in Thurston County and with Safe Place and with the court. Yeah, it's crazy. I gotta say, this whole thing's been devastating. It's by far the worst experience in my life. My son still is the most important thing in my life to me. Last thing I heard from him was a message saying, Mom told me, referring to my ex-wife, his mother, Mom told me that you wanted a dog and never wanted a child, and that you don't love me. I can't tell you how devastating that is. I have no way to contact him. If I contact him, I'll go to prison for over a year. Even sending in a birthday card will mean prison. Yeah, it's been horrible. I mean, I could never return to school because of this. The fines are well over, holy cow, they got to be over $100,000, $200,000. I don't know. But I'm bankrupt. I've got no career. My connections are severed with the people of Tucson, my home, our home, my son and I's home. Yeah, it's horrible, and there's not a day that goes by that I'm not tormented. There's not a day that I don't think about putting a bullet in my head because of this. I mean, it's been a pile-on. You got a victim, she admits to the violence. That's the ironic thing. She admits to the violence. She is violent. I'm a victim of domestic violence. A man that's a victim of domestic violence because I wouldn't fight back. And I always tried to get her into psychological treatment rather than get her thrown in jail or prison, which I didn't think would help her. I'm a victim, and then the courts here have just jumped on top of the victim and continue to victimize me, victimize my son. I can't tell you how horrible it is. It's destroyed my family. My son was taken from me. I had full custody of him in Tucson, Arizona because of my ex-wife's violence against him, against me, her binge drinking, her drug use. They hid out in Michigan. Took me months and months and months to find them. Finally found them. We went to Olympia, Washington as sort of a safe haven, I suppose, because my mother lives here and she could help. it's been a nightmare since then. The Thurston County Family Court had claimed jurisdiction, even though my wife was on the run and had 2 warrants for arrest out of Arizona, which prohibits any other area from claiming jurisdiction in a child custody case. It's been horrible. I've been thrown in jail for over a year with no hearing until the last month, and then that hearing was a joke because I just pled guilty and it wasn't my attorney. I wasn't allowed to speak. I wasn't allowed to face an accuser. And that was over. That issue was over my being beaten for 8 hours on videotape at an airport, one of the largest airports in the world. On videotape, the only time they ever released videotape to a private individual because it was so extreme. The worst violence they'd seen at the airport in the airport's history. And this is an airport that serves millions and millions of people, a huge international hub. All they did was cordon off the area where she was beating the crap out of me, let people walk around, and said this is not an issue for this country. Obviously it happened overseas. It's not an issue for this country. It's an American issue. When I got back to the US, the court refused to look at the video, took her oral testimony that somehow I had abused her when the videotape shows clearly otherwise. And I served the greater part of a year in jail. No, like I said, no hearing, no justice whatsoever, no bail. I'd like to see my son. I miss him more than anything else in the world, and do so every single day, and worry about him because she's threatened to kill him in the past. This has cost me, aside from the most important thing, my son, financially, it's taken everything from me. I used to have, you may think I'm eccentric, but I used to study camel reproduction, and I had a herd of camels, and even they're gone in Arizona. That's how desperate I got. And I still owe probably hundreds of thousands of dollars according to the court up here. It's, I don't know, it gutted me. I couldn't finish my degree, so I was up to the point where I could start my dissertation, and all the coursework was out of the way. There's nothing impeding me from a PhD, and that's destroyed. My ties to the community in Tucson, Arizona, the research community, my friends, that I haven't, last time I was able to even make it to Tucson has been maybe 5 years ago. It's been hell on earth. Yeah, if people want to see the video that I've been talking about, the one that certainly pissed off the court, and even the courts admitted that they read my blogs. The family court reads my blogs and watches my videos. In fact, one of the, I don't know what her title is, but she's I guess she'd be a clerk there. She would joke around saying, I hope you're not going to put our bad music tastes that they pipe over the system there on your blog. They're well aware of it. Anyway, the blog can be seen. I encourage you to look at the videos. It's not me ranting. They're short videos simply about the attorneys and the commissioner. And you can do that by going on YouTube and looking up probably either Christine Schaller, Judge Christine Schaller, Schaller, Thurston County Court, or you could look up Nyles 7, my first name, number 7, and like Nancy, I guess, YLES, and the number 7, the digit 7. I think that would take you to my blog. If you did it on Google, it would certainly take you to the videos. if you did that on YouTube. I encourage you to do it, and you'll see, I mean, the truth is right there, and the court knows it. As far as the attorneys go, there are two primary attorneys, both from Thurston County, that are intimately involved in this case. One is attorney Paul Batten, Battan. Be sure and send him a message. Let him know I said hello. Give him your opinion. And ironically, with him, we both graduated from University of Arizona. Again, I didn't graduate with my PhD because of these problems, but I have a master's and bachelor's from there. We both graduated, and we got along fine. And one time we went to court, and I just did a dirty little move. And I turned to him, and we had talked about fathers, the importance of fathers. And his father had died, my father died. And I turned to him and I said, if your father could look down on you, Paul, and see what you did today in court, would you be proud of his son? And he turned bright red, and that was the last time, absolutely last time he ever talked to me. And he just got more and more vengeful after that. Once the video went up, which again you're welcome to see on YouTube by searching for under Nyles 7 or Paul Batten, Battan again. Once that went up, then he just became venomous, and that's how that's remained. My criminal attorney, which I hired, Richard Woodrow, Woodrow. Again, let him know that I said hello, and please do say hello. He promised, when I was arrested for the violence, for being beaten, when I was arrested for being beaten by my wife, he had promised I'd be out of jail in a week. And I said, all right, well, the only thing I have of value is an old Civil War gun. It doesn't fire. It's an old Civil War gun, and valued at, nearly $100,000. Certainly, you get $50,000 for it. I gave him that as collateral, and we wrote out a little agreement that I would pay him within 90 days of that date, or he could keep the gun. And you got to remember, he had promised I'd be out in a week. And that was the last I saw him. 90 days came and went. I never heard from him for months and months and months. Fired him. I mean, the court has a record of that. Fired him, asked for different counsel. Never got different counsel. He came in, pled guilty, and I've never seen the gun. I mean, that was the last valuable thing I owned, and that's gone. So the attorneys here, they're all part of the same family. Like I said, Paul Batten's wife is second in command at the State Attorney General's office. They all know one another. They're all involved in this whole thing, this little clique. And if you're an outsider, if they don't like you, if one of them doesn't like you, everybody knows that, and it's been miserable for me ever since. And certainly it's because they communicate.
Nyles, if you were allowed to speak to your son, what type of things would you like him to know?
It's hard. I guess more than anything else is that I love him, and that I'll always be there for him, and that I'm doing my damnedest to be allowed to even email him. I mean, it's crazy. But to email him would mean prison for over a year. I'd like my son to know that he's the most important thing in my life. Whatever his mother told him about me wanting a dog and not a child, and that I didn't love him, I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, I love him more than anything, more than life itself. I I would want them to know that most of all, that even though I'm not physically there, it's not my choice. It's it's not my choice. I would be there in a second, in a heartbeat. Can't do it. My personal experience is that in Tucson, Arizona, I mean, justice was fair. They weighed both sides of the case. They looked at evidence, the most important thing, and they ruled based on evidence. It wasn't until I got to Thurston County, Olympia, Washington, and got involved with the family court system up here that all that went out the window. They had the case transferred up here without letting anybody know what the dialogue was between the two courts. The court up here certainly knew that my ex-wife was on the run because they had copies of the two warrants. Did they tell the judge this when they had the judge in Tucson, Arizona? Did they tell her that before they had the case transferred up here? I'll never know. But I'm sure if the judge knew that in Tucson, that it would never be moved up here. The injustice began in Thurston County, Washington, Olympia, Washington, and it's still continuing to this day with no end in sight. I don't know, well, what does Lawless America mean to me? It's deviating from the law. More than that, it's deviating from the spirit of the law. I know there's strict constitutionalists, and I agree the Constitution has to evolve with changing times. I mean, it's got to be pretty justifiable to change the Constitution because that's our ultimate protection. But lawless, I mean, the courts are on their own. They're freelancing. It's like interpretive dance when it should be a structured procedure. And there's no recourse. If the judicial system isn't upholding justice, what hope is there for this country or any country? What hope is there for civil rights, for personal freedoms? There's nothing. It's the whim of a commissioner, or the whim of a judge, and nothing you can do about it. That's what I believe Lawless America is all about. Is restoring the rights of the individual, just the basic rights. That's it. It's not a male-female issue. It's not a husband-wife issue. It's not a gender issue at all. It's an issue of just giving people the rights that they're guaranteed to through the Constitution, through state and federal law. That's it.